I think women haven't felt very heard when they go and they express these things like, I'm feeling tired or my period's heavy. And I think traditionally, like as growing up as a 20-year-old, the advice I got, well, it's how it is.
Yeah. We've brought the conversation of hormones to the table, but it's, understanding where does that actually fit within the journey?
The frustration of too much information, not knowing where to go, and still falling into the trap of so many physicians saying, that's just the stage of life that you're in.
We don't want to, feel out of control or feel like we can't regulate.
Welcome to the Living Richly podcast. Today we're talking about bridging the hormone gap and what we wish we had known sooner in life. This is an exciting episode. It's the latest episode in our series, Real Women, Real Talk, that Wendy and I do, where we dive into all things female related, and we have some pretty open, honest conversations. And today we are joined by Dr. Pollon MacLeod. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So glad that you're here today. We're going to be diving deep into perimenopause, menopause, hormonal health, how to talk to our teens. I know this is a subject that you're pretty passionate about. Naturopath, CEO of NutriChem, and I'm going to read the last part so I get it right. A Menopause Society certified practitioner.
Yes.
I love so many questions. Wendy and I were so excited for this
very
episode.
excited. Yeah.
Yeah. And we are going to talk, I think because so many of our listeners are at that stage of life where they're dealing with their own hormonal issues and also trying to help their teen daughters through theirs. And so we kind of want to talk about both and what it means as a mom too, to kind of navigate and how do you have some of those conversations. I do think it's timely. This week in the news, in the U.S., the FDA passed, I'm sure you're very aware of this.
They removed the black box warning.
Which is a fantastic step in women's health. It does still feel, I will say, for a lot of us women, that we're only getting started on this journey of women's health. There's not a ton of research that's historically been done, but I'd love to get your take on why do you think it still feels like this enigma, or it still feels so fuzzy for so many women?
Yeah. And, I've seen a dramatic shift over the last year with it's really women and patients that are driving it. They're more educated. There's so much information out there now. They're not having to access information only from their doctor, so there's some pretty powerful conversations happening. There's always so much information out there, though, that sometimes I think the message can get lost because there is a bit of information overload with social media and so many, different voices that are kind of coming to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think I drown in it all. Like the social component, I've learned, I preach to my kids, don't get your medical advice from TikTok, but I have for sure done it at some point and then researched. Like we've all done it because it is kind of that, what is the trusted source for information? And it's really hard, I think, for a lot of women.
Yeah, I think it's great that we have information now that we didn't have when we were growing up. But then on the flip side, there's so much, to your point, it's how do you kind of distinguish what is factual and what you're going to take from it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
If we start with, I'm going to start with perimenopause. You're perimenopausal. You admit that all the time on the show. You're looking at me like
I'm like
I am like full menopause. I got my official check the other day. Yeah, so officially, for whatever that means. But I'd love to know from your lens, because I think a lot of listeners get, as we just talked about, misinformation. But what are really some of those early perimenopausal signs that maybe aren't so standard, that often women are like, oh, I get, they go to their doctor and it's like, oh, it's anxiety or it's this. And so, but what are some of those early signs that women should pay attention to?
Yes. And this is so important for us to talk about, because if you don't understand the journey and you don't understand, we kind of are like, okay, your period's going to start.
Yeah.
But there's no real discussion on, well, well, what about how it stops? And I think that's the journey. It's not, a check mark. Like we said,
totally.
Okay, we've got our menopausal stamp.
Exactly.
We know that's not how it works. And we've brought the conversation of hormones to the table, but it's, understanding where does that actually fit within the journey? Because different stages of it, there's different interventions and there's different things you can do to support a woman through, the stages. And that's what it's all about. It's, having access to different tools, and there's stronger tools, and knowing when would certain ones work for you? When is it safe to bring them in, and how should you bring them in? And that's the gap, and I like the title of the episode is women are like, okay, there's something going on. Right. I know it. My body is changing. My, my resilience is changing. My, mood, all of these things. But I know there's hormones, but how does that fit into my actual healthcare?
Yeah. What are my options? Yeah. Like, I know for me, it just felt like everyone says, I just don't feel like myself. Yeah. Like, it's probably the most common way women describe it. But
because it's really hard to pinpoint.
It's like, so what is hard. It? Yeah.
And usually like your partner or your spouse will be like, well, but what do you mean? Yeah. And then it's, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's the issue, because I didn't really answer your question on perimenopause, what the perimenopausal journey is, and that's the issue with it sometimes, and we will get into that, is that there's no kind of easy textbook way. We think, oh, I would feel like this. It's so obvious, but it really isn't. And so when a woman is having a regular menstrual cycle, even when we are having a regular cycle and we're in our regular reproductive years, we're still cycling. There's still no steady state of hormones.
Right.
And so the perimenopausal transition it's really a shift from the brain and the ovaries. So women are born with a finite number of eggs or follicles, right? So we're born with a number, and as you age, the number declines. Yeah. That's just biology. That's how it works. But as those eggs as they age, they also become less responsive. That is also kind of just how things work with, deterioration. So what ends up happening is that our brain will always want to try to maintain estrogen levels. It'll always try to maintain ovulation. The brain wants equilibrium. It wants your hormone levels high. So what happens kind of on the biochemistry, body side, is that your brain will try to keep sending signals to get your ovaries to ovulate and get that dominant follicle to release estrogen. When the follicles are less responsive, your brain needs to send more and more and more signal to get ovulation to occur. So what happens in the kind of like 40, like early 40, mid 40 range is that you have these cycles where your brain is sending so much signal to get ovulation to start, it can start to stimulate a second follicle within the first cycle. So you almost have stimulation of more follicles starting to produce this estrogen. It's called a loop cycle. So you get these doubling and tripling levels of estrogen relative to progesterone. And so that's where you can see the shifts in the actual period happen. So you're still bleeding, you're still having a period, but because there's these crazy high and low levels, you start to get things like, people are like, what, my cycles, it was 28 days clockwork, 25 days, 21 days, clotty, really heavy, I'm bleeding all over the place, I'm non-functional, or the mood swings with those highs and lows are really, really intense. So the way you can kind of spot it, like from a very, more traditional standpoint, is a shift in the menstrual cycle. So those are the first signs that your ovaries are becoming a little bit less responsive and your brain's having to work harder. So you're going to start to see shifts, plus or minus up to 7 days, and you might see increases in flow, clottiness, heaviness, more cramping. So a lot of the times is where women can have really intense bleeding and crazy mood. It's more intensification of PMS. So instead of it being like a couple days before the period, it's like 2 weeks before the period. You're like, I can't, I'm not functional. The sleep is a big one. 2, 3 a.m. Heart palpitations can be a big issue. eventually, and I know I'm kind of going on, but I want to show go
no. This
whole,
I'm like, oh yeah.
And so eventually what will happen though is the signal will fail. So at some point, the ovaries and the eggs or the follicle, they won't respond to the signal from the brain. And that's when you start to shift. So that's early perimenopause, what I was talking about. There's different phases. So there's the early phase, little bit of change of the cycle, plus or minus 7 days, intensification, crazy highs and lows. This is the roller coaster. Yeah. Eventually, what will happen is you will start to skip or miss periods, and the periods will start to become longer. So, instead of now coming rapidly, you're like, weird, I've never missed a period in my life, and now it's 50 days. And then you might get 3, and then you're like, okay, I just missed 2. That is the transition into late perimenopause.
Interesting. I've never heard perimenopause be broken down into phases. So that's actually super, super helpful.
It's really important because the phases are very different. The first phase is your body is still very responsive, but the signals are being cranked up by the brain. Mm-hmm. So you are getting intensely high estrogen symptoms. And this is the roller coaster is really in the early stages. Yeah. Once you transition into late, and you can still have cycles, it's cyclical. It doesn't just, now you're in late, let's transition into this phase. You can still have a couple cycles of loop, but typically what you're starting to see now is estrogen levels drop. And so late when you start to miss, this is 60, when you're okay, it's been 2 cycles, I've missed a period. One missing of a period is typically you're starting to get into late now. Yeah. This is much more typical of hot flashes and night sweats to actually start when your estrogen levels are dipping low. Yeah. So you can have flashes before the period in early perimenopause, but it's rare to have them all the time. And so transitioning into late, your body is now trying to adapt to the loss of estrogen. So having these larger gaps of time when estrogen is lower, you tend to move more into, this is where a lot of the shifts with kind of brain fog, a lot of the achy joints, stiffness, injuries, skin changes as your body is really trying to adapt. And then you'll have maybe 3 or 4 cycles or 5 where you're like, oh, it's back. And then it'll start to peter off again. Maybe you miss it for 3. And then eventually the period will stop. And that's early stage menopause. And that's where the bone loss, a lot of the body physiological adaptation happens in the early stage. Yeah. And the later stages, late, 5-7 years post, your body has adjusted usually.
Yeah. I just feel like I relived my 40s.
Right?
Listening to you tell it. No, but just every, literally that was my journey with it.
Yeah.
And I think I would love for us to talk about, when should women go see their doctor? At what point? Because I know my girlfriends and I, we go out, you're having a glass of wine, we're all chatting about our perimenopause and
our brain fog.
And I can't remember, and I don't have the same energy, and I'm not sleeping, my hot flashes, all of the stuff. And this generation of women are buck up, get on with it. We're not or you go to your doctor and often you're not getting taken seriously, or they recommend an antidepressant, which seem to be the recommended drug to cure everything for us. And so we often wouldn't go, and we use each other, which is helpful in a support system, but it's not medical information. Yeah. And so, when do you recommend that women start talking to a practitioner, whether that's a naturopath, whether that's their family doctor, their OB, whatever that is? Is there a stage where it's just they're feeling a certain way? Is there a recommended, where do they start?
Yeah. Well, it's important to understand the intention. It always kind of comes back to that, because depending on who you want to see, there's different outcomes, and setting expectations, I think, is important. So if you're someone who if you're someone who is I want to be proactive, I want to understand what's going on with my body, I'm in my mid-30s, late 30s, I'm having some issues. And again, you don't even have to be having issues, just understanding what is currently happening with, we don't value this sometimes. Like we always think you must see someone when something is wrong.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is that you're now trying to fix something versus trying to understand it and understand how you build resilience for your body before you start the transition. Because we know woman's going to go through it. Some women, I don't like to paint this picture that it's going to be this journey for every single person.
Yeah.
The biology will happen, but the transition, how it impacts you and your quality of life is typically impacted by a lot of other factors, like your other stress. Like there's so many other pieces that have a very significant impact on how intense your symptoms are.
Yeah.
So, women, if you're having, and I like the saying, just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. So if you're having consistent symptoms associated with a period that are very painful, very heavy, like you should be talking to your doctor or OB. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you don't necessarily have symptoms, but you're kind of concerned about how your journey has been, or if you've had issues with PMS, then seeing someone like a naturopathic doctor in that stage is really important because, we don't want to label everything as hormones.
Yeah.
It's really important because the other side is true. If we say, oh, it's your hormones, we might be missing the iron deficiency that has gotten extreme because of the bleeding.
Yeah.
That's a huge issue. It's common. It's not normal to be walking around anemic and try to function.
No.
But we're like, oh, well, yeah, it's your hormones. You're in perimenopause. Of course you're exhausted. No. Like hormones won't fix an iron deficiency.
Yeah.
So like these pieces, or blood pressure, under eating, undernourishment, like these are very common, especially when women are trying to kind of take control of their weight. So they're eating less, working out more, bleeding like crazy every 21 days, and they are exhausted.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all the things.
All the things.
Yeah.
We've been there. I think, I love that you talk about prevention. I know being a naturopathic doctor, you look at a lot of root cause. And I think it's so necessary and a gap in our kind of traditional medical system. And I think, and I hope our listeners heard this, but it's, if you're feeling any kind of way, go talk to your practitioner or go see somebody. But you don't have to sit there and be uncomfortable and call it perimenopause and call it's hormones. If you want to understand what's going on with your body, and to your point, if you're bleeding excessive, like there are options for women, and there are treatments for women that aren't only HRT as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's important because I think some people assume, well, it's natural, so why would I need a treatment? So we put ourselves in these boxes where we think that there's this like badge we get for just like gritting through, where I'm like, well, how are you supposed to function if you're not sleeping?
Right.
You have no energy and you're not able to function at work. It's, why don't we value this? Like, this is important that you feel good and you get sleep. And like, that's important. We sometimes have to tell women, like, your health and your quality of life is critical.
So I'm going to unpack that a little bit because like, I think so many women, I'm thinking of so many conversations we've had on the podcast.
Well, we are so many women.
We are. But how much we put ourselves last, right? We've done a lot of episodes on self-care, and women in particular, how they struggle and how everyone else comes first. I know for me, it's definitely like, it's everything you just said. It actually, I'm like hearing you speak, I'm like, well, that just I feel so selfish. Like it really, like that's where my brain goes, which is, and that's something, we talk a lot on the show is how do you start shifting those conversations? And I think primarily it's for so long that I think women haven't felt very heard when they go and they express these things like, I'm feeling tired or my period's heavy. And I think traditionally, like as growing up as a 20-year-old, the advice I got, well, It's how it is.
Yeah.
And so I think the more women that can have a voice and really start saying, no, like, hey, this isn't normal and this isn't okay. And really taking, I think, some ownership too of their health journey and finding the right practitioner for them, finding the right fit. We talk a lot too on the show about finding, if you're in therapy, you find the right therapist and you date your therapist until you find the right one. I know we don't really have the liberty of dating our family physicians right now. There aren't enough, but there are options out there. And I think, encouraging people to take ownership as well.
Yeah. And I can't remember exactly what you said, but you alluded to just being more proactive than reactive, and not falling into the trap like when we were in our 20s that, well, that's just the way it is. Like, we do deserve to have a good quality of life. And it is about, you have to self-advocate. I find a lot of women, just the frustration of too much information, not knowing where to go, and still falling into the trap of so many physicians saying, well, that's just the stage of life that you're in, right?
Yeah.
And feeling even more defeated when you leave the office and you not really know how to manage that, and just feel, frankly, like shit because, you feel like I still have to do all the things I need to do. And when did, now I'm not enjoying life because of how I'm feeling.
Yeah. And I think like we've talked openly about our hormone, I'm going to say hormone replacement therapy, but HRT, and our journeys with that on the show. But I wonder sometimes if we're like HRT is going to cure everything, and it doesn't.
It's such a big topic now.
It's huge.
Such a big topic.
And it helps. Like I'm the first one to say, like, I'm so grateful that I got educated and learned more about it. And for me, it's made a huge difference. However, there's other things that I've been doing. So I'd love to hear from you. Like, yes, HRT, if it's an option, it's the right fit for a woman where she's at. But what are some other things that women can start doing to maybe help in that, perimenopausal, menopausal journey?
Yeah, I just I did a whole event on this day educational thing for women called Thriving Through Menopause, and my talk was literally on this. So just, take home message for anyone listening is that hormones are a tool, but they're not the goal. And I think what people are seeing right now is we want quick fixes. We're like, oh, perfect. Here, give me hormones. It's going to fix all the things. Where there's a time, I'm a huge advocate for hormone therapy as well, like you said, but there's a time and a place, and hormones won't, if you don't build the foundations of health, like you must build muscle. Yeah. You need to work on, stress, nutrition, and diet is critically important. Like these pillars and foundations must be there. And using hormone therapy as a tool to help your body through the transition can be incredibly effective. But if you're still if you haven't, brought any of these things in, the way you're going to get the effects from hormones, they won't work as well, and I think so there are other tools. Foundations are always critical. So diet, can't be, we can't underestimate how important it is that you're actually eating and you're eating protein and you're nourishing your body and you're not starving yourself and fasting all day long. Exercise, building muscle, like, again, critical. Understanding your stress, understanding, I think a huge part is actually giving yourself permission to seek support and not trying to be like, okay, well, just fix it really quick because I don't have time for my health. But now we're kind of still in the same
loop.
Loop. So foundations, it's important to understand though that, so there are other options, and Nutrichem is also a pharmacy. My husband's a pharmacist, my dad's a pharmacist. So I also think we don't want to there's no good or bad options. I really, think that we're, hormones can't be synthetic. They have to be bioidentical. You can't, there's, birth control equals bad. This isn't good. No so I'm very, much in the camp that some people need different options. And if we guilt them and create more stress, that maybe they need, I'm a huge proponent of IUDs for women who need them, there's options, but if we create more barriers and shame and judgment, then we're actually, reducing the options that women feel like they have. So there's different options for the different stages, and there's some natural options that, again, these are gentle tools. They're not powerful tools. They take a lot longer, but they can be very effective in the early perimenopausal stage. There's no natural supplement that will stimulate estrogen receptors like estrogen does. There's nothing I can give you naturally that will build bone like estrogen does. So these are important conversations so we're not misleading women. We can help with symptoms in perimenopause, but there's no natural thing I can give you that will work as well for hot flashes and night sweats, that will actually address the physiological change to the depletion of estrogen.
I was so hot last night. I felt like the room was on fire. Just saying.
I've been there.
Oh my God.
I have been there. I'm now past that. Now that everyone knows where we're at. But it's so important to talk about.
Yeah, that's hormones, right?
But it's the hormones have helped. I don't have my hot flashes. I'm not waking up at 2 a.m. anymore. My brain fog is still a thing, but that's, there's things. So some things have really improved, and what's improved is significant for me. And so, and to your point, I do treat it as something in my toolkit. It is exercise.
I love the toolkit analogy because I think we forget that, right? And to your point, it's all about the quick fix, the Amazon Prime. It's showing up between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. Everything's going to be fixed, right? But it's the toolkit. I love that analogy because I think that women need to be super educated and not be getting distracted on, maybe HRT is great for you. Maybe it's not. But what about the other things in your toolkit? So do you are you eating well? Are you doing all of the things?
And holistically looking at your body. And I think you said it well as we don't often prioritize our health holistically from head to toe. And we might focus on one area for a while, or I'm going to hit the gym really hard and I'm fasting, or now I'm not eating, or now I'm I'm going to focus on diet and maybe I'm not lifting weight, and we tend to get hyper focused versus introducing the lifestyle, and it's your foundation and it's weaved into your day.
Consistency over perfection always. And
words to live by.
It
is though. It's it's not about hitting it 100% every single day all the time. It's just stay with it.
And that's sometimes, that's sometimes I think where a lot of the confusion lies is, because we think that there's supposed to be a quick fix, we will flip from thing to thing because we're it's not working fast enough. It's not the right thing. And so we are taught that there is this secret, or social media does it. There's an answer out there. You just haven't found it. And once you find that one thing, and now the thing is hormones, everything will change and everything will be better. But knowing hormones, if you know what the tools are for, hormones for sleep and hot flashes, phenomenal. Better than anything else you can do for perimenopause, for sure. But if you're trying hormones because you feel like your body is changing or you're moody all the time, there's other pieces we're going to need to break down first, and you won't have the impact as quickly. But understanding if those are your issues, build foundation, and that can, really support you fast. I think these are the conversations we want to have.
And I think it's important, the quick fix mindset is you talked about the Amazons. It's part of it, but I think specifically with perimenopause and men, this is years and years of your life. You have to find strategies to be able to manage it over those years. It's not going to be find the magic pill and feel better.
Which I think transitions nicely into, as we're raising girls, how that kind of translates into being able to support and educate our daughters and really be able to start conversations with them that don't sound clinical or doctory
or mommy preachy
or mommy,
quite frankly.
So I guess how would you and when what kind of suggestions would you give in terms of how we can start having those conversations? Or maybe there's lots of listeners who are having conversations, but they're just not, I think a lot of moms are like, am I saying this right?
No,
am I overwhelming them? Where do I start and what should I be saying to support them, but also not bombard them with information?
Yeah. Yeah, I get asked this a lot, for in any age, girls that haven't yet gotten a period or they're just about to get their period or it's just kind of started. I'm a huge fan of encouraging parents to talk to girls for any health condition around connecting before we try to correct something. So I think we are, given the theme of the conversation, kind of the quick fix. And because there's so much information, we do sometimes auto go to, oh my gosh, let's dive in and fix this. Let's get on top of this. And kind of giving your body a little bit of grace to understand, okay, what is your cycle like? Connecting with it a little bit first and understanding that in the first year and just talking to them, it's very normal for periods to be very irregular, for them to not come come cyclically. Sometimes we expect it to come on right away, and to kind of set up the conversation that we're more just we're just learning. We're not trying to fix or correct. We're just learning about your body, and your body is literally trying to start to set a cycle up, which is incredible. It's amazing. Your ovaries have been suppressed for, 10, 12 years, and now your brain has to start turning them on, getting the signals going. And so, setting the expectations that your body is navigating something, complex. We want to be really kind to it. We want to nourish it. We want to make sure you're eating, honestly, eating enough and getting enough food and making sure women are, your girls are getting protein. And again, we don't need to be over the top, overloading them, but just being you're starting to bleed. Your body is now needing to grow and develop. We need to fuel it and feed it. That's honestly probably the most important information they can have, not to try to start undereat while their bodies are trying to and there are going to be changes, and we have to just connect with them. I'm a big fan of starting there.
Yeah, I love that. I know with my daughter, a big thing for me was to try and help shift. She had this mindset, it's shameful still. It's still a dirty thing to get your period, and somehow it's hidden, and it's it's something she needs to hide over here from girlfriends, school, her brothers, me, her dad. And so trying to at least give her a safe space with me to have that conversation. But I'm also overly too passionate about educating my boys on you don't, in my house, there's no room for the shame when your sister's got her period. So oh, is it that time of month? Because she's all bitchy. Great. Okay. Well, yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But if it is, how about a little compassion for your sister? Because here's what she deals with. So trying to educate them in a way that feels I get so heated sometimes, though. I'm aware that my delivery is not the best as a mom, but it's really because I want to help shift the narrative with my boys too, so that they can then support their girlfriends, their wives down the road. And so sometimes I would love to know how to talk to them better about. And it's weird. They're teenage boys. There's only, the language you use matters and how you communicate it. But I do think it's equally important to talk to your boys, if you have boys.
Yeah, I agree.
About what's going on.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I have 2 boys, so I'm in the boy zone.
Yeah.
But I think just open conversations that it's, it's part of and honestly, what you're doing, just them seeing that and having these conversations and saying, this is the reality, and it's have compassion and understanding and not blaming and shaming, because I'm whatever you are saying or thinking, as a woman, we're thinking and feeling that too. We don't want to, feel out of control or feel like we can't regulate, we're not like, this doesn't feel good.
Right. And
so having other people kind of pile on to that, and I always use the term pile on, like, don't pile on, just I'm working through my stuff. I have tools, and you give her tools to support, like, what do you need during this time? And understand from her a little bit. I think that's key, is letting, and sometimes they don't know what they need, but giving space to be like, you might have to kind of explore, your body needs different things at different times. And as we age, what we need changes. And I sometimes think, we forget that. We're like, oh, okay, what we're doing at this stage, but that didn't work for me, or I never had to do that. I'm like, yeah, things will change, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah. And I know for, and I'm sure you've had this when you're, like, my daughter came home from school the other day because she had cramps, and I picked her up, obviously, but I remember thinking back to when I was in school.
Oh yeah,
like, I think just generationally how much we've shifted. Like, my mom would have said, well, I don't care. Like, you stay at school, like, buck up, get on with it. Like, that was just, that's how it was. And so now sometimes I'm like, I'm grateful that I can give my daughter, like, I'll pick you up. Here's a heating pad. Like, do you need some Advil? Like, take care of her. But then part of me also is like, do we talk about this a lot on the show. Do you over-rotate so much that, like, I think part of me, it, like, gives her so much care because I didn't have any in that space. So now I feel myself giving her extra care and making sure she's taken care of. And so, like, sort of, what is that? It's a tricky balance to know, like, you want to nurture and take care of your kid. But you also, like, you're going to have your period for a very long time. So how am I also mentally equipping her to be like, it's okay to slow down and take time, but you also, like, because of your period doesn't mean you're not going to school for the next 3 days. Like, it's a tricky balance.
I think that's a great point, because like, I will say, as a business owner, the amount of staff that call out sick because they have their period is, and they are kind of in that younger age demographic. And so to your point, I want to make sure I'm supportive, but at the same time, the other side of me is like, girl, you're gonna have to deal with this for the next 40 years. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I think there's a, you kind of find that ability to be compassionate and supportive, but to your point, it's like, but life still needs to go on. So how can we manage this and make sure that you're supported, but also not kind of getting it in your head that, you need like a week off school or your job every month.
Yeah. And I think every kid is different. So
everybody's
like
different,
honoring that, like, every kid has a very different, or every girl has a very different cycle. And like,
that's the complexity of it, is that there's some, women that it's like, they can't get out of bed and they're vomiting 100%.
Yeah.
But, I think it's very, there's the pendulum, and the pendulum will always overcorrect and swing one way. But as a parent, I mean, it's watching your kid in pain is
the worst.
The worst. And we will always, you
just want to
nurture them. I know. Like, my youngest had to go through a couple surgeries, and I had to learn, you can't do anything to take away their pain, but we will overcompensate. So at the end of the day, I think it's just you being there. Doesn't mean you have to, like, remove every barrier. But I think them knowing, like, you're supportive on the days where it's really bad, you can, like, that's where it's like, have the scale. Be like, if you're under a 5, like, this is, you're going to have to breathe through it. And sometimes distraction is actually a good thing. Sometimes, like, leaning into your, like, a lot of the top pain clinics now where, Mayo Clinic, all the, like, they're not talking about their pain, rating pain. A lot of the times when we have pain, if we sit in the pain and just become consumed with the experience, it will become worse. It'll, like, your brain is like, oh, this is important. Let's focus on this. So just having, some dialogue around, okay, I'm here. I believe you if you say it's too intense to focus. But, we're going to need to establish a little bit more understanding around, is that your day 2 where it's typically, like, really bad? Other days, if it's better, like, you're going to have to learn to, and I'm a big fan of understand, like, your body is strong and we can handle shit. You know, like let's not shy away from challenge, pain, you know, discomfort because we don't grow.
Yeah.
So, you know, there is a push and a pull.
Well, and I think too, what you said about like understanding your daughter's cycle is really important.
Yeah.
And I would encourage dads to understand their daughter's cycles and understand their wives' cycles as well. Like just to understand, okay, we're on day 9. That's what this means. Like getting familiar with that and getting educated in that space. My daughter has an app. There's an app for everything now, but she tracks her cycle and she's like,
if we had an app when we were, I would have loved an app.
I don't think I want a
paper calendar.
They like literally got your exes. P. I always had P on mine.
I always wrote me too. It was always just a P. It was never more complicated.
Now there's like all
that.
these fancy apps.
Oh my God.
Like colors and
I know. And I wouldn't want the app because mine was so irregular. It probably would have said I was like dying of something. I'm sure. But I do think it's important to get to know your daughter's cycle and understand, like, is she crampy 3 days before? Is it during? Is it, how is her cycle? Is her cycle change? And having the open dialogue and the conversations.
And the information that we give, and maybe we could just go through quickly, like if you had maybe 2 suggestions on maybe some of the important information to share with your daughters, you know, whether it's like birth control or, I know we spoke some of it, but do you have like maybe 1 or 2 kind of top recommendations that you would say we should prioritize in terms of sharing information so that we're not overwhelming them?
Yeah, so I think talking about, you know, maybe what can be very common, but what might not be normal. So you know, cramping, discomfort, that you feel it can be very normal. If you find if your daughter isn't going to school because she's having days where she's like, I can't function. I'm not like, these are things that, you know, we should be seeking support for and understanding. Is there some endometriosis going on? Like what is going on? Like what's happening here? If she isn't getting, like, again, the first year, it's normal that you can miss periods, that it's not coming regularly, not coming every month. Usually after the first year, you know, maybe 14, 16 months, you should be getting quite a regular period. And if you're not having a regular period, so just checking in to be like, hey, can you just, you know, these are things that we just want to make sure you're on somewhat of a regular cycle. And if not, that's where you want to make sure that you're building a little bit more support. So more like the level of pain, the consistency of the period are kind of some pretty key indicators as to if you might need more support. Or if this is something that she's just gonna, you know, you're just kind of helping be there, not necessarily fixing it because we can't, but just being there to be like, what do you need? You know, go easy on them or just show them about you're gonna need you're going to have more cravings or whatever. Your mood might be a little off. We're not angry at you. You know, sometimes it's nice to be like, we love you. You're a good person. We understand that you're learning to regulate for these couple days, and nothing you say or do in this time, like, we're not holding it against you. And sometimes
I love that too.
The safety. It's just that safety net of like, it's like, be you.
Yeah.
And we get it. And we're not like, it's what I've talked about this on the show. Our foundation in our family is like, we have the foundation of I love you, which is like holding up the house.
Yeah.
But there are times I don't like your behavior.
Yeah.
So, but the foundation doesn't go anywhere. It's that same thing.
Yeah.
And it's totally out of their control. Yeah. Like, and I think that's something that is not well understood.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for women to explain, is like, I always explain it when I would have really bad PMS, is like, I feel like I'm watching myself third party be like so nasty and not the person that I consider myself to be. And I have no control. But I feel like I'm watching a movie of someone else's. And I would always explain it that way. But it's very hard to explain when you're in that and you're just like...
No, because it's your reality. You're like, this is just me.
Yeah.
And then after you're like, oh. I guess that... But I think, you know, being like, you're not going to know how to regulate that. Right. And it's hormones. Yeah. And also just to be like, if it's impacting, you know, your relationships with your friends, your ability to connect with it, like, be like, let me know if and when you want some support on this.
Yeah.
Because it's not kind of like forcing it, but it's also like,
you're leaving the door open.
You're leaving the door open because we do want to empower women to be like, how do we, give you support so you learn how to communicate around this time so you don't blow up a bunch of shit when people don't know.
Totally.
But it also has to be, you have to want to seek the support yourself.
Right.
1,000. Yeah. And I think women need to ask for what they need. And I love the idea of like equipping women to even learn how to do that, because I think so many of us don't ask for what we need.
Yeah.
I do appreciate how you mentioned a couple minutes ago around just a time frame, because I think that's so helpful for moms, is how long should I be waiting before, I think you said like about 14 months or so for their cycles, like for everything to kind of regulate, so that we're not rushing them to the doctor too soon. Totally. Like, what's a good time frame to be like, okay, so this is how long it's going to take for things to kind of stabilize, normalize, and then we can kind of see like, hey, after like 14, 15, a year and a half, I think, now maybe it's, let's look at other options. But I think that's really helpful. Like, because I would have thought it would have been like, I don't know, 4 months, 5 months. So just knowing that it can take that time can sometimes be reassuring as a parent, knowing that, okay, so, and to reassure your daughters as well that it does take time to regulate.
Yeah. And if you're, and again, like if your girls are missing periods for 3 months or so in that time, it'll take, like, you're not going to go, some women do, like some girls, it's like 28 days quite quickly, 28, 35, 21, 40, 32, 27.
Yeah.
That's normal. If you're like, okay, she got 3 periods and then we haven't seen anything for 3, 4, 5 months, we should look, because again, just like when you lose estrogen later on in life, estrogen is really critical for bone development, cardiovascular development. Like there's a lot of critical things we require. Estrogen is required for the development of a lot of our systems. Yeah. So not having your period is an indicator that your body is not getting the hormone it needs. So beyond 3 months, that's where you should definitely, if it's been 3-4 months after the period has initiated, that would be
it's time.
It's time to just check in. And, that's PCOS is a big thing. And we want to just make sure, like, what's going on. You'll probably be given birth control. Yeah. That's what will often be given. And just knowing that might be the thing is important for women to not be in shock when someone says, hey, I want to prescribe your 14 or 15-year-old birth control. Giving yourself, okay, well, what are the risks if I give it or if I don't? It will regulate. It'll give the estrogen that you require for the things, but understanding why it's happening is also important.
Yeah, and we talked about this earlier. I just went through that and I'm still unsettled about it. I think sometimes parents just get... You worry, and you worry about your kids and you worry about your daughters, and all of a sudden it's,
they're your babies.
When birth control comes up, I think a lot of moms instantly will have a reaction, which is like, whoa.
Yeah, of course. It's like a trigger word.
It is, but we need to get educated about it, exactly as you said.
Yes.
Okay, in wrapping up, I'd love to just end with, if there's like one thing you would want our listeners to unlearn about hormones in general, what would it be?
Well, I think I'm going to go back to that thing that I said, that hormones can be an incredibly effective tool, but they are not, it's not the goal.
I love that.
That is, if I had to have one quick statement.
I love that. Well, thank you for being on the show. I think we I could have asked you more questions.
As soon as you mentioned PCOS, I was like, geez, we didn't even...
I know. We could unpack. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to learn more from Dr. Emma, we will add links in the show notes. You can also visit nutrichem.com, or you can follow Dr. Emma on Instagram. That link will also be in our show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always listen to us where you listen to all of your podcasts. You can also check us out at livingrichly.me, where you can join our Facebook Nation group. And if you're a business owner and you're ready to lead boldly, be sure to check out Rhapsody Strategies. So until next time, get out there and continue living your best life.